In a beautiful mountain area where the sky was clear blue and the valleys were green, a young blogger Tiny Siapu was live for his fans. Mounting his phone on a selfie stick, he shouted with full energy. Brothers, I am your Tiny Siapu. Our scientific investigation journey is about to begin. On his screen, the name Tiny's popular science daily channel and 3.78 million views were showing. A rain of notifications began. One viewer asked, "Have you left physics and started doing survival science now?" Another said, "The scenery looks great," but one comment caught Siapu's attention. "The streamer's background shot looks very fake." Siapu smiled and said, "Oh, some bros are doubting the fake background. Let me adjust the camera for you." He turned the camera and showed the tunnel road to prove everything was real. But right then, a loud sound echoed from the tunnel. A truck engine roared loudly. When he turned, a white truck was rushing straight toward him. "Good grief, what luck! Right during live stream!" a viewer screamed. "Holy crap!" Siapu froze in terror. The truck was right in front of him. A sharp brake sound, and then a violent crash. The next moment, the screen shattered like glass. Siapu was sucked into a blue light vortex with binary codes swirling all around, and his body was scattering like data. When his eyes opened, everything had changed. "Where have I come?" he asked himself. "Am I still in China? Is this hell?" He remembered the truck accident and thought, "This is extremely unscientific." He was now sitting on a weird glowing magic circle. Shocked, he looked around. Dark walls, spider webs, and iron bars. It was an old-time prison. From the background, scary screams of prisoners echoed. Realizing with shock, he muttered, "This is a prison." He stood up and tried his cell. Moss covered the walls and the bars were rusty. Everything felt extremely real. Using his scientific brain, he tried to understand the situation. Did a wormhole make me time travel? Or did quantum entanglement cause superliminal transmission? Frustrated, he shook the bars hard. "Is there any normal person who can tell me what's going on?" he shouted. Then he suddenly worried about his phone. "Hey, where's my phone? Did it fall? How will I handle such massive traffic now?" Just then, a soft voice came from the darkness of the cell. "You are not scared?" Siapu turned. A girl stepped out of the shadows, long white hair, blue eyes, beautiful blue dress, chains in her hands. Seeing her, Siapu thought, a cosplayer? A Chunibyo girl? Why does she look so cute, like a real 3D person? The girl asked again, "You are not scared of me?" Siapu came to his senses and, looking at her chains, asked, "What heinous crime did you commit?" The girl replied in a deep, mysterious voice, "Some sins are predetermined from birth." Hearing this, Siapu became serious and said, "And you should be the one scared. I, a living person, suddenly appeared in your territory." But the girl calmly replied, "No. This place is a Zaira Royal Capital Prison's death row." Siapu felt like he was dreaming. The girl continued explaining that she had tried to summon a demon to tell her last wish, but by mistake, she summoned Siapu instead. Now you must be wondering what Siapu thought. He believed the girl was too deep into some role-play game. He thought she was a chunibyo, a Japanese term for people who consider themselves heroes of some fictional story. But then, the girl's next words echoed in his ears and gave him a massive shock. The girl said, "All of us in this cell will be taken to the hanging ground tomorrow morning and burned alive." Hearing this, Siapu completely lost his senses. He understood it wasn't a joke. The girl told him that if she cancelled the summoning, Siapu would return to his old world, but would die instantly. He remembered crashing into an 8-ton truck at 120 miles per hour. After calculating, he realized he had already died. This wasn't a game. This was reality. Death row. Burning alive. Everything was true. When the seriousness of the situation sank in, the girl asked, "Now are you scared?" But hearing Siapu's reply, even the girl was shocked. There was a calm, confident smile on his face. His eyes were hidden in the shadows, but not a trace of fear was in his voice. Scared? Why would I be scared? I am only afraid of unknown things. And anyway, I am a huge fan of Prison Break. He added that he was a popular science blogger and had countless ways to escape a jail. Seeing his confidence, the girl couldn't believe her luck and said disappointedly, "Impossible." But the next moment, Siapu did something that made her eyes widen. He touched the prison bars, and they melted. The girl gasped. How is this possible? Is this fire magic? She thought to herself that boys weren't even able to use magic. Siapu turned in a stylish pose and said, "Magic is too fantasy-like. This is the power of science." The girl was still shocked. She couldn't understand how he melted anti-magic metal without any magic energy. Siapu opened his bag and took out some items. "Have you ever heard of a thermite reaction?" he asked. The girl said, "No." Licking his lips confidently, Siapu said, "Never heard of it? Then today you'll witness something amazing." He sat near her chains and began explaining. "It's very easy. Just mix aluminum powder and iron 3 oxide powder in a 1 minute and 2.95 seconds ratio." He took out a lighter. "And then ignite it. It generates up to 2,500 degrees Celsius heat, enough to melt steel." A bright spark rose, and he easily melted her anti-magic chains. The girl was stunned, just staring at him. And like that, using his scientific intelligence, Siapu melted the prison bars and the girl's chains, proving that science is no less than magic. The girl's eyes were filled with total surprise. Softly she whispered, "The power of science needs no magic." In her world, such things were possible only with magic. Siapu held out his hand to her. "What are you waiting for? It's escape time, Miss Prisoner." But the girl looked at her handcuffed wrist and stopped. When Siapu grabbed her hand, she said sadly, "But I am guilty." Siapu pulled her toward the big prison gate and said, "In the place I come from, there is no such thing as being guilty by birth. Don't say unscientific things." The girl tried to warn him. "If you save me, you will have bad luck." She then said her name. "I am Reina." And the boy replied, "My name is Siapu." They had barely started running when a voice echoed from the corridor. "Someone is escaping." The guards had seen them. Siapu grew worried. "Did we get discovered so fast?" One guard recognized her and shouted, "That's the Calamity Demon." Seeing the guards, Siapu gripped Reina's hand tightly and said bravely, "Don't be scared." But before the guards could advance, the real game was flipped by Reina. A strange purple energy shone around her. One guard screamed in fear, "Oh no, that's teleportation magic!" And in the next moment, with a blast of bright light, Siapu and Reina disappeared. When their eyes opened, they were far away from the prison, under an awesome moonlit night beneath the open sky. Their escape was successful, but both of them were falling rapidly toward the ground. "Hold tight!" Reina screamed in the air. She tried using her magic to slow the fall, but it was useless. She gave up, saying, "Magic isn't enough." Thud! Crashing through tree branches, they fell downward. But at the last moment, Siapu saved Reina. He took the full impact himself, becoming a cushion for her. When she opened her eyes, Reina was on top of him. Seeing her so close, Siapu's face turned red. "Are you hurt? Are you okay?" Reina asked with concern. When Siapu said he was fine, Reina breathed in relief. "Then that's good." Looking around, they realized they were in a graveyard on a mountain. Siapu thought, "Fine, we escaped prison. Now what?" He wished he could live stream this escape. It would have gone viral for sure. Confused, he asked the obvious practical question. "Now that we're out of jail, what's your plan?" But Reina didn't give a direct answer. She just stared at a grave and said, "I want to go home." She had no solid plan. Then she revealed the seriousness of the situation. "My magic is exhausted. I can't protect you, and our enemies will soon catch us." Here, for the first time, we get a hint that their fates are tied. When Siapu asked why she was talking about protecting him, Reina clearly stated, "I summoned you. If I die, you will die too." Basically, it was a lifelink contract. Reina's life was now directly connected to Siapu's. Hearing this, poor Siapu's reaction was priceless. For him, it was unbelievable. He panicked. So that means I am half dead now? A perfect normal reaction in a supernatural situation. But Reina made things even weirder. Some beasts must be kept on a leash. Now think from Siapu's perspective. A strange girl binds her life to his, and now calls him a pet beast. He thought, poor thing. She looks pretty, but her head doesn't seem to work properly. The next moment, Siapu suddenly grabbed Reina's hand and hugged her tightly. Your life is now mine. I won't let anyone take you. He told her he would send her home. But the city's entry and exit were only through the main gate, and that was heavily guarded. As they entered the city, everything seemed strange to Siapu. He noticed, puzzled. Weird, all soldiers are women, and men are doing manual labor. What kind of world is this? Reina looked at him strangely and said, Weird? What's weird about it? Only women can use magic here. So naturally, men have to listen to women. Hearing this, poor Siapu almost cried. Great! I almost died, and now I arrive in a world where my status is even lower than girls. Then they saw two men carrying a large wolf. One man yelled at the other. How can you be so careless? The wolf slipped from their hands. Drool from the wolf's mouth fell onto a metal bucket, and the metal started melting. Everyone was shocked. But our hero is our hero. This is Shadow Wolf saliva, he said. People were confused. Then Siapu began explaining scientifically. If I'm not wrong, the saliva's main component is acid. It reacts with magnesium to produce sulfuric acid. Everyone was stunned. Reina could only mutter. Astringent acid. Nearby, two men were standing and watching as if this was some strange circus. One asked, What is this kid even doing? The other shrugged. Dunno. Just looks weird. The first man stared at the red pouch in Siapu's hand. Why would someone play with such a useless pouch? What strange hobbies kids have nowadays. Ignoring them, Siapu grabbed Reina's hand and left, carrying the red pouch. As he walked away, he smiled and said, Thanks, uncle. They hid near the city gate, where the security was very strict. Reina nervously said, The city gate is heavily guarded. We can't get out. Siapu set down his bag and began mixing some liquid in a bucket. Watching him, Reina asked, What are you doing? Soon, bubbles started rising in the bucket. A strange smell hit Reina, and she closed her nose. Ugh, such a bad smell, Siapu said quickly. We have to do this step fast. He poured the chemical mixture into the red pouch, took out a long strip of cloth, and said, We'll use this as a fuse. Taking their stuff, they hid at a good distance. Yes, this distance is just right. And no one is nearby, Siapu said, examining the area. Reina still had no idea what was about to happen. She asked, What exactly are you going to do? Siapu pulled out his lighter. Just wait a moment. You'll see for yourself. He lit the cloth fuse. The fire slowly crept toward the pouch. This pouch is filled with hydrogen, Siapu explained. It only needs a slight spark. And the next moment, boom! A massive explosion echoed. Windows of nearby houses shattered. This is called hydrogen detonation, Siapu said calmly. Hearing the blast, a woman screamed. What was that? A guard on the wall rang the danger bell. It's the Calamity Witch. Must be her magical attack. The night captain ordered. All of you, hurry to assist. Using the chaos, Siapu lifted Reina onto his back and disappeared. After running far enough, when everything was quiet again, Siapu smiled and said, Operation Science complete. Reina looked toward the distance. There was new hope in her eyes. She thought, I can finally go home. Looking at Siapu, she thought, the beast I summoned is truly amazing. Meanwhile, at the blast site where smoke still rose, a girl arrived and said while examining the spot. So the sound came from here. Looks like Reina has summoned an amazing little cutie. Honestly, I feel like making him mine. Behind her, her beasts growled. They move ahead searching for Reina and Siapu, and they arrive outside a cave. Someone tells her, Master Si, the demon hounds are reacting. Their tracks are here. They must be hiding inside. She sends all her beasts inside, and soldiers also rush in, while she stands behind, smiling. And then the scene shifts. Inside the cave, all of them are sneezing. Maybe because of that plant. Sneezing, they say. What is this smell? Achoo! And then the scene shifts again. Here we see Reina and Siapu. We should be safe here. A dog's nose is 10,000 times more sensitive than a human's. Using strong smells to interfere with their sense of smell, we can stop them from tracking us. Then Reina says, Good thing you thought demon hounds would chase us. Siapu smiles and says, And thank you for telling me about canine demon beasts. I was able to use paper against them. Then Reina grabs Siapu and starts sniffing him. Pinching her nose, she says, It's just that, not only demon hounds but even we. Siapu says, I wish there was water to bathe. Hearing this, Reina pulls down Siapu's pants, and Siapu starts yelling. And then Reina, using water, saves Siapu's dignity. I can help you bathe. She increases the water even more and starts washing him. Siapu is crying the whole time. A little later, the two of them are walking through a deserted, dry area, and Siapu's face is gloomy. Reina, confused, asks, What happened? Was the bath uncomfortable? Siapu says, Next time, don't use magic to take my clothes off, and don't use magic to bathe me, and don't bathe me outside in the forest. If this happened earlier, my account would have been gone. She doesn't understand at all because she is still just a child. Innocently she asks, But didn't you want to bathe? Siapu says, Not in the forest. Without any mental preparation. Just stripping my clothes and bathing me, we're not at that stage. I'm still in shock. Then Reina points ahead. There's a village. Is this okay? The two enter. It's a dry village with a water shortage. Seeing it, Siapu says, What? This is what you meant by lively. Ahead, two villagers are fighting for water in front of a well. You're already half in the grave. Why are you drinking water? Old man, drink your own pee. Siapu asks Reina. This is what you meant by welcoming. Reina herself doesn't know. Why is it like this? Siapu says. Earlier you used magic to bathe me. That means your magic can make water, right? Then make some water. Reina agrees, activates her magic, forms a huge ball of water, and pours it into the well. Seeing the water, all villagers are shocked. They fall to their knees and say, Lady Witch, please save us! Save us! Siapu looks at the well and says, The fields of the village have dried up. Everywhere the ground is cracked. The bottoms of the wells have only a thin layer of muddy water. Villagers are fighting for a little water. This drought is terrifying. Scene shifts. Here, Siapu is building something. A child comes, looks at Reina and asks, Lady Witch, are you the savior the village chief invited? Everyone says the village chief abandoned us and ran away, leaving useless men to die. But the chief always worked hard for village crops and rituals, and treated illnesses. She isn't that kind of person. I want to become like Big Brother too. When I grow up, I want to become Lady Witch's servant. Reina replies, Not a servant, a summoned beast. The child asks, Summoned beast? Is that even more amazing than a servant? Reina says yes and pats Siapu. My summoned beast is very amazing. Siapu stops his work and says, What kind of way is this to treat a puppy? I am a proper human being, phylum Chordata, class Mammalia, order Primates, family Hominidae, genus Homo. Then another child runs in and asks, Can you help our family too? Reina agrees, but she begins to feel dizzy. Using too much magic has exhausted Lady Witch. Siapu catches her and tells her to rest. He brings her into a house and lays her down. You don't need to work so hard, I have a way to get water for them myself. He finishes building something. Here. It looks like some net-like thing placed over the well. Next day, villagers are shocked seeing so much water. There is really water. Only witches can make water. An old man asks Siapu, "How is one man doing this?" Siapu says, "When you master science, nothing is impossible." Science. A child asks, "Is this the thing Big Brother calls science?" Siapu says, "No. This is called a fog net. There is water vapor in the air. The vapor continuously gathers on the surface of the net, and finally forms water droplets. That is science." He adds, "Though this amount is not enough for the whole village, if we install many of these devices, your water problems can lessen." They say, "So that means if we do what you taught us last night, we can all make water." They lift the fog net and are happy. Siapu says, "You can think of it that way." A child excitedly says, "I get it. Science is something even humans can use." Siapu poses and says, "Magic." Seeing his pose, the child gets even more excited, as expected of Lady Witch's summoned beast. "Big Brother, you're amazing!" Siapu says, "I'm a human, not a beast." All villagers together shout, "Long live Lady Witch! Long live Lord Summoned Beast! Long live science!" Reina is happy and pats Siapu again. Siapu gets annoyed. "Didn't I tell you not to treat me like a small animal?" Reina touches him and says, "A master and summoned beast have a contractual relationship. When a summoned beast completes a task, the master should give a reward. Thank you for giving water to the villagers. You did very well." Siapu's mood is down. Honestly, I don't understand what this girl is thinking. The child behind them still hasn't come out of excited mode. "I also want Lady Reina to pat my head." After a while, soldiers arrive searching for Reina. The child sees them and says, A disaster. Are they here looking for Lady Reina?" They say to the villagers, "Don't tell anyone that our drought was also because of this. Something that can make water without relying on any witch." And that girl arrives. Her name is Si, and she wants to take Siapu. This summoned beast is getting even more interesting. I really want this one. Fill water, it's time to continue the chase for my little cutie. "Yes, Lady Si," the soldier says. Scene shifts to Caroline's city outskirts. Water is being sold. Seeing it, Reina says, "As expected." Caroline too. People are shouting, "Water for sale! Magic water! 1 sip equals 5! Drink 1 sip and stay hydrated for 3 days! 3 silver coins! What a bargain!" An old man approaches. "Please, 1 sip of water. 3 silver coins is already our monthly income, we really cannot afford it." The seller says, "If you can't afford it, get lost." Seeing this, Siapu says, "There's no shortage of people who profit from national disasters. You said your home is in Caroline. Doesn't anyone manage things here?" Reina activates her magic and makes water, fills a bucket, and gives it to the old man. "Here." He asks, "Is this free?" Hearing, "Free water," everyone looks over. Even the fat guy sees it, walks over, throws the bucket aside, and says, "I don't care where you came from, you rude witch." Showing his license, he says, "Look closely. Only we can sell water here." Reina says, "We are not selling water, we are giving it." The fat man pockets the license and says, "Don't you know? Especially because it's free, it's even less permitted. Don't you know cutting someone's livelihood is like killing their parents?" After listening quietly, Reina says, "Lord's mansion will never approve your kind." The fat man laughs. "Let me kindly remind you. Even if I kill you, the Lord's mansion won't blame me. If you don't believe it, try it." And then a girl arrives. Soldiers shout, "Everyone move aside. Her name is Ruby. What's going on here?" The fat man points at Reina. "Someone is engaging in malicious competition, disrupting the market, and trying to harm the witch who makes water for our guild." Lady Ruby looks forward, then slaps the fat man hard. Lady Ruby kneels in front of Reina. "Greetings, Lord." Reina stands there without any reaction. Siapu is the most confused. What does this mean? Then the scene shifts to a huge palace. Here Siapu is bathing when suddenly a maid walks inside. Seeing her, Siapu gets embarrassed all of a sudden and shouts, This is the men's bathroom, right? But that maid directly walks up to Siapu and says, You are Siapu, right? I have come to take your measurements. Siapu becomes confused and asks, And measurements? Measurements of what? Just then, the maid takes out a measurement tape and says, Length. What else? Here, Siapu is trying desperately to protect his dignity. The maid continues, You are a man brought here by our Lord. In the future you might even become part of her harem. And in the future, good quality heirs might be born. So taking these measurements is necessary. But Siapu tells her to stop and sinks deeper into the bathtub. Just stay there. Don't come near. Put that there, I'll do it myself. So the maid says, Everything written in the form must be filled. Once you fill it and give it to me, then go to the council hall and meet the Lord. She keeps the tape there and starts leaving, and while leaving she says, Remember, don't make any mistake in the data. After the maid leaves, Siapu lets out a sigh of relief and mutters, I thought I was just having fun staying with a witch. I didn't think she'd turn out to be such a big deal. If she's a lord, then of course she might even have a harem. Looking at the water, he thinks, Outside people are dying for water, and here, wow, really. No matter where you go, the rich never care about the suffering of the poor. Then he gets ready, wears new clothes and starts walking toward the council hall. On the way he is thinking, No, maybe she's different. Inside the council hall, a voice comes. Before anything else, explain this to me. This was Ruby talking to Reina. You, who should be in Azira royal capital, what are you doing in Caroline's region? According to the agreement between the late lord and the Witch Management Association, you can only return to Caroline's territory when you turn 18 and can stably control your magic so you don't cause destruction. Hearing this, Siapu thinks, Destruction? Is this why she said she was a criminal? Ruby continues, When you aren't explaining anything, then for the sake of this region and its people, fulfill your duty as lord and leave for the royal capital tomorrow morning. So Reina says, I will go. I will return. But hearing this, Siapu thinks, Going back? That's like inviting death. And along with her, my head will also get chopped off for free. Just then he opens the door, walks inside, and says to Ruby, You don't care at all that the Lord was imprisoned in the death sentence jail for the sake of this region and its people? Then Reina says, I will go to the royal capital and explain everything. But only after solving the drought problem and paying tribute to my mother. Ruby replies, I just said, maintaining the governance of this region is the mission your mother entrusted to me. Using too much magic to create water will reduce the witch's magic for some time, which will weaken our fighting strength. I cannot drain the magic of the water witches for the sake of saving people. Then Reina says, If mother were alive, she would also have let the water witches help in this calamity. She would never abandon her people. Ruby cuts in. Managing the palace expenses is already difficult. We don't have extra water witches for emergencies. Each region's witches have their own duties. Calling them without reason will bring even bigger disaster. At this moment, we see Siapu pull a chair, sit down, and say, Hey, isn't it funny? There's so much water in the bathhouse for bathing, but that water cannot be used to save the people. Hearing this, Ruby goes silent. After a moment she says, They have their own fate. Reina, confused, says, Fate? Is that all? She looks at everyone and says, Even if all my magic is exhausted, I want to try to change fate. Ruby shouts, Lady Reina, don't be stubborn. But Reina doesn't pay attention and keeps looking outside. Then Siapu asks Reina, Reina, your magic, can it control ice? Can it control wind? Reina answers, Wind witches are many. Ice witches are very few. Hearing this, Siapu says, So you have both. He then looks at Ruby and asks, Your name is Ruby, right? As far as I heard, you're worried that if water witches are used to make water, then enemies might take the chance to attack. And you also think that even if all the witches go to make water, the shortage still won't be solved. Ruby answers. Handling a region isn't that easy. Water witches cannot leave their place without permission. Siapu continues. If you don't want to use water witches, then use wind witches and ice witches. Wind and ice, and a bit of science, can solve the drought problem. Reina asks. Can science really solve the drought of all Caroline? Siapu replies. Correct answer. Ruby, watching both of them, thinks in her mind. Lady Reina is believing such big claims from a man? Some time passes. A girl drags a fat man in chains and says, I heard the Lord, who should be in royal capital, has returned. She steps forward and says, Merida, vice president of Fano Merchant Guild, has come to apologize. She repeats, Vice President Merida of Fano Merchant Guild has come to apologize. Just then, the fat man extends a license with a devilish smile and says, I am a merchant of the Fano Merchant Guild. Earlier I insulted the Lord, and now I have come with the president to apologize. I voluntarily return this license, and will take all the water witches away from Caroline. I will no longer sell water. Ruby silently listens to all this. Siapu looks at both of them like a cunning fox and thinks, they are talking about apologizing. But actually they came to pick a fight. They'll threaten to take the water witches to force some big profit out of this. Right? Then Reina walks to the fat man and says, A mistake done unknowingly isn't a crime. Please leave the water witches here. Hearing this, the fat man starts sweating. He looks toward the girl Merida. She was just as nervous. Then the girl says to the fat man, Lady Reina is so kind, then keep the license. Ruby breathes a sigh of relief. But then the girl continues, But a crime must still receive punishment. When he came earlier, he insisted that even if the license is not taken back, he would punish himself by taking away the water witches. Hearing this, Ruby shouts, When Lady Reina says no punishment, then there is no need for punishment. The water witches will stay here. No more arguments. Then the girl says, Just now outside I heard that Lady Reina wants to use these wind witches and ice witches to remove the drought. As far as I know, Caroline has many wind witches, but only one ice witch, and she is first tier, the weakest. And coincidentally, the only fourth tier strongest ice witch belongs to the Fano Merchant Guild. She continues, If Lady Reina has no objection, then in place of his punishment, I offer my own. I will lend you that fourth tier ice witch and some wind witches for your use. How about that? Reina asks. Would that be okay? Siapu thinks. Perfectly okay, because she won't give them for free. Then Merida says, A fourth tier ice witch's salary is not cheap. If during the drought, our guild can freely set the prices of all our business in Caroline, then I think this can be accepted. Ruby slams the table and shouts, No need. Removing drought using ice witches and wind witches is just fantasy. We don't need them. But before she can finish, Reina says, Accepted. Ruby shouts from behind, But Lady Reina! Merida and the fat man bow before Reina, and Merida says, Lady Reina truly cares for her people. I will go back and make arrangements. I'll also provide a separate workshop. In her mind she thinks, Soon these people will come begging to me. And then the matter won't remain only about controlling prices. She approaches Reina and says, Oh yes, better hurry. I heard that some Lady Shia from Royal Capital is coming here chasing after you. The scene shifts to Lady Shia, who says, So this is the place where you grew up, Reina. I really want to know more about you. Scene shifts again. Reina holds Siapu's hand and says, Come on, quickly. But our hero Siapu stops her and says, Hey, wait. Before that, won't you properly explain your witch knowledge to me? What is this first tier, fourth tier? And you need 2 different witches for wind and ice magic? Does that mean one witch can use only one type of magic? So Reina explains. Witches have a total of 9 ranks. 1 to 9. The higher the rank, the more powerful. You can advance by taking a test. The scene shifts to the alchemy workshop, basically where chemical-related work is done. The moment they enter, the whole place is covered in dust. It looked like a total junkyard. So Reina uses her wind magic to quickly pick up brooms and cleaning tools and starts cleaning. While cleaning, she says, "Most witches can only use one type of magic. But I know 5. Except ice magic." And then she reveals a big fact. "Oh, and yes, I am 9th tier." In the blink of an eye, she makes the whole place neat and tidy. Seeing this, Siapu says, "Wow, you look like some genius from another world. But tell me, why do you faint every time after using magic?" Reina explains, "Magic power finishes all of a sudden, that's why I faint." Now Siapu understands the plan. He says, "I was worried earlier about where to find someone to build this nitrogen-making device. Come on, little genius. Let's play the Witch's Alchemist Workshop game with your fire magic." Reina agrees and uses fire magic, asking, "Like this?" Siapu guides, "Yes, just like that. Just focus on the force. Make sure to rest. Don't overdo it." Reina puts effort. Her health falls to 66%. Siapu gets anxious. "Don't push yourself too hard. You'll faint again." And then their alchemy project gets completed. Siapu shouts happily, "Ha ha! I must admit, magic is really a useful thing." He lovingly pats Reina's head and says, "Lady Lord is so amazing, so great." And in his mind he thinks, "Now you too experience how it feels to be treated like a puppy." But Reina was fully enjoying it. Then Siapu says, "All right, the device is ready. Once those 2 witches arrive, we'll start making liquid nitrogen for artificial rainfall." And speak of the devil, they arrive. 2 witches sent by Merida walk in. One yawns and says, "Lady Merida sent us. I am Wind Witch Floro." The other says, "And I am Ice Witch Jinless." Reina points at Siapu and orders, "Cooperate nicely with my summoned beast." Siapu gets irritated. "How many times do I have to say I'm not a beast?" The 2 new witches get confused. "We're supposed to follow Lady Reina's words, right?" Then Floro points at Siapu and starts, "But this man." Siapu cuts in. "Whose order you follow doesn't matter. What matters is, I need your help. You must compress air using wind magic. Liquefy the gas using ice magic, and then with this device, we'll do artificial rainfall and solve the drought problem." Hearing this, Floro becomes shocked. "You want us to end the drought?" Jinless also says, shocked, "This thing? This looks like junk. It's not even a magic tool." Siapu, full of confidence, says, "Yes. Exactly with this." They understand nothing. But Floro thinks in her mind, "Forget it. What does a man know about magic anyway? Just pretend to work quietly, take our salary, and leave." Siapu points toward that device and says, "This is called a pressure gauge. It shows the pressure." But Floro was in an entirely different attitude. She thinks in her mind, pressure? Why is this fool even mentioning pressure? Can he see with his own eyes? Is he blind? Siapu continues speaking. "Miss Floro, please use your wind magic to fill air into this tank until the needle reaches 15. Floro reluctantly starts working. "I just started and he already gave me a task." She uses her wind magic, but in a completely tired style. Siapu tries to cheer her up. "Miss Floro, once the needle reaches 15, you can rest. Use a little more power." She does use power, but the pressure gauge needle refuses to move forward even a bit. "As soon as it reaches 15, your work is finished," he says. Floro becomes exhausted and starts panting. "It hasn't even reached 5. Is this the strength of a 4th-tier witch? You can't even compress air." Hearing this, Floro's temper skyrockets. She shouts, "Who are you looking down on? Among 4th-tier wind witches, I am a big name. I alone have taken the advancement exam. What does a man like you know? Just by pumping air, this will reach 15. I think you're backing out of your big claims and intentionally made this broken device so you can blame me." Just then the pointer suddenly shoots from 0 to full. Reina steps forward and says, "Like this, Is this okay? In the blink of an eye she uses her wind magic and sends the gauge needle straight to the top. Siapu happily gives a thumbs up. Lady Reina, you are amazing, incredible, she says. Among the 5 types of magic I know, one of them is wind. Seeing this, Floro is totally shocked. She drops to her knees. My research of so many years is nothing compared to her one casual move. Jinli supports her and says, Lady Reina is a genius. In front of talent, effort becomes worthless. You don't need to feel discouraged, senior. Siapu moves on to the next step. Alright, now nitrogen has started being produced. He pours the nitrogen into a container and turns to Jinlis. Miss Jinlis, now it's your turn. Use your ice magic to turn what's inside into liquid form. Basically, make it like water. Jinlis asks in surprise. There is something inside this? Siapu explains. Inside is an invisible, intangible, odorless gas called nitrogen. It liquefies at minus 195 degrees Celsius. In simple words, I just need your ice magic to freeze the nitrogen inside this. Jinlis is still unsure. Floro, who is sitting on the ground, warns her. Don't be silly. Don't exhaust all your magic power like I did. This man is intentionally making things difficult for us. But Jinli says, but he said he wants to solve the drought, and this is my first job. She encourages herself. I want to try with all my strength. But in the very next moment fear settles in her heart. This task is so scary, Siapu, who is watching them, says. A 4th-tier ice which can't liquefy nitrogen? Without liquid nitrogen there will be no artificial rainfall. Hearing this, Jinlis comes under pressure. She shouts with passion. I can! But instantly her courage breaks, and with a crying face she says, I can! I can! I can't! She falls into a loop of I can. I can't. Seeing this, Floro becomes angry. She lifts Jinlis up and shouts at Siapu. Look what you've done to my partner! We cannot continue today's shift. We are going home. And both of them leave. Then Reina comes to him and gives him a glass of water. Thank you for your hard work. He speaks sadly. You two did all the work. I only gave theory and did nothing. And it looks like I upset them. Reina strokes his head and says, It is normal to upset people you don't understand. Siapu thinks, again she is treating me like a puppy. Suddenly his eyes fall on a book. Jinlis, the bespectacled girl, left her book behind. He opens it, and is shocked to see complex scientific and mathematical formulas inside. He realizes. So the real meaning of your magic is to deconstruct matter and reconstruct it. With this realization he gulps down the entire glass of water in excitement. He turns to Reina and says, Reina, I have a plan. Reina blushes, thinking, that was my used cup. Next day, the scene changes. With Reina's help, 4 identical machines are now set up in the workshop. Reina wipes Siapu's sweat. You worked really hard, Siapu replies. You made all 4 machines with magic. You're the one who worked hard. Just then Floro and Jinlis return. Seeing them, Siapu confidently says to Jinlis, Miss Jinlis, I know how to make you freeze nitrogen into liquid. Humph. Floro mocks. A man who can't even use magic will teach a witch how to use magic? And ice magic at that, something even Lady Reina hasn't mastered. Aren't you afraid people will laugh at you? Siapu replies calmly. You may not believe it, but actually, I can use a little bit of ice magic too. Jinlis looks at him. But I can't detect any ice magic power in you. Siapu places 2 vessels on the table. Now watch carefully. It's time to witness a miracle. He takes a big pot filled with water and places a small container inside it. Then he adds saltpeter and closes the lid. He explains, Luckily saltpeter is found in the corners of old house walls, and after a bit of cleaning we can use it. Jinli suddenly feels cold. Weird, why does it feel cold? Siapu smiles. When saltpeter comes in contact with water, it becomes cold and absorbs heat. So this small can will keep losing heat, and the water will turn to ice. He removes the lid, and inside a solid ice cube has formed. Both witches stare wide-eyed. Siapu lifts the ice cube and says, "So what you call ice magic actually means heat absorption and release." He gives the ice cube to Jinlis. "Here, cool down a bit." Jinlis mutters in amazement. Heat absorption and release. A spark lights in her mind. She becomes excited. "Lord Summon Beast, please give me commands." Siapu becomes irritated. "What Summon Beast?" "My name is Siapu," he explains. "Reina told me your magic is only ice, frost, and snow. In reality, all of that comes from drawing heat out of water vapor in the air and condensing it into the form you want. So the main point of your magic is forcing heat to release from an object." He guides her. "Now imagine this bottle isn't empty. It has nitrogen gas. Use your magic to release its heat. Cool it. Cooler. Coldest." Jinlis closes her eyes, concentrates. And succeeds. I did it!" Seeing this, Floro, who was standing at the side, slowly steps forward, embarrassed. "Lord Summon Beast. I also want to work. Can you guide me?" Scene shifts. Nighttime. Siapu and Reina are sitting on the rooftop. Liquid nitrogen is ready beside them. Siapu says, "Now we just have to send this liquid nitrogen high into the sky and detonate it, then it will rain." Reina says, "I can use teleportation magic." Siapu warns with concern. "You should rest first. I've noticed your magic doesn't just consume mana, it drains your health too." "What if you faint before you even teleport up there?" Reina says. "There is no time for that now. As a lord, I want to do something for my people, just like my mother did." Siapu explains gently. "But to avoid mistakes, you need to rest. Teleportation magic also consumes a lot of mana, right?" Reina agrees. "Yes, rest." She lays her head on his shoulder and instantly falls asleep. Siapu is shocked. She fell asleep just like that, in such a place. He lifts her in his arms, takes her to her room, and lays her on the bed. As he turns to leave, Reina hugs him in her sleep and mutters, "Don't leave me." Siapu's face turns red. Then she whispers, "Mom." Siapu replies softly, "Yes?" confused. Suddenly a lady knight enters the room, panicked. "Lady Reina! Lady Reina!" Reina wakes up startled. The knight brings terrible news. "Lady Reina, many refugees have forced their way into the castle for water. They are shouting that Caroline is suffering drought because of your arrival. They demand the calamity witch be expelled from Caroline." Voices of angry people echo from outside. "She is not worthy of succeeding Lady Sheena." Reina looks out the window and sees a massive crowd. Seeing their anger, she freezes in fear. She remembers the old days, her mother fighting strange monsters to save the city. But now the voices from outside pierce her mind. "Calamity Witch, leave Caroline! This is all because of you. You brought disaster here." These words stab her brain like arrows. Then suddenly, Siapu's voice echoes in her mind, giving her strength. "From a scientific perspective, it is impossible for one person to cause a drought. Remember, you are not the Calamity Witch. You are the witch who will end this disaster. Where I come from, no one is a born criminal. So don't say such unscientific things, Miss Prisoner." Meanwhile, the situation outside the castle gets worse. The crowd is pounding on the doors and shouting, "Open the doors! Open the doors! Open the doors! You blood-sucking beasts!" Just then, Ruby appears in front of them with 2 guards and says sternly, "Anyone who forces their way into the Lord's castle will be sentenced to death according to the law." But the crowd is not scared by her threat. "We're already dying, and you're trying to scare us with death?" And then they break the gate and rush inside. The crowd becomes even more violent. "Attack! Kill these rich brats! Fight till our last breath!" The guards shout, "Alert! And get ready." Before things escalate further, Siapu and Reina arrive there. "Don't hurt the common people." The moment they see her, An old woman points at Reina and shouts, "There she is! The Calamity Witch! Stop pretending! Caroline is suffering this drought only because you returned." Someone even throws a stone at Reina, and Siapu catches her. Another man yells, "Exactly! Lady Sheena died early because of you." The furious crowd begins throwing stones and shouting together, "Calamity Witch, get out of Caroline! Get lost!" Suddenly, Siapu shouts loudly, "All of you stop!" With full confidence he announces, "I promise that tomorrow it will rain." Then he warns in a threatening tone, "But if anyone dares harm the Lord even a little, then this light of hope will turn into the fire of justice." Suddenly, the torch in a man's hand flares up violently and he screams, "Oh! Hot!" The old woman shouts angrily at Siapu, "You, a man without magic, how dare you spread such lies here and spout nonsense?" And then people start throwing stones at Siapu. "Liar! Idiot! Kill him!" Before the mob can attack him, Reina rises into the air. Magical light shines all around her. She comes down and declares, "If it doesn't rain tomorrow, then he and I will both be hanged together." Hearing this, Siapu thinks in his heart, "You're ready to die on your own, why drag me along too?" The next scene shifts to a place where bottles of nitrogen gas are stored. Floro says, "Sending 5 bottles of liquid nitrogen so high into the sky, even with a teleportation magic circle, still consumes an insane amount of magic power." And Jinli says, "Only a genius like Lady Reina can handle such heavy magic consumption." Just then someone approaches and calls Reina's name. It turns out to be Shia. Seeing Shia, Reina says, "You came to arrest me, right? Caught me correctly." Then she looks back and says, "But I am not a Calamity Witch. I have done nothing wrong. I cannot go with you." Shia shouts angrily, "I knew it, you've gone astray because of that cute little pet of yours. But there's still time. Come quietly with me, or everyone you trust will be destroyed." And at that very moment, flames erupt all around them. Then she says, "Come with me, Reina, or I will burn your precious bottles into ashes." Fire starts spreading there, so Siapu starts extinguishing it and shouts, "The liquid nitrogen bottles can explode from high temperature. Don't let the fire touch the bottles." Just then, Floro says, "Look at me, I will extinguish the fire with air." But Jinli says, "Lady Xia is an 8-tier witch." And fire surrounds Floro, making her scream. "As expected, my magic cannot extinguish the flames of an 8-tier witch. Now I can only rely on Lady Reina's water magic." Here, Reina generates her water power and forms a huge water ball. She thinks in her heart, "If I use water magic now, I won't have enough magic power left to teleport." But on the other side, Xia increases her fire power and says, "Before you try to move, don't even think of resisting. I guarantee I will burn everyone and everything inside." Siapu also starts feeling the effects of the fire. Jinlis is busy controlling the temperature and says, My magic isn't left much. I can't maintain the temperature of the liquid nitrogen tanks for long." Seeing all this, Reina closes her eyes, and everyone starts yelling at her. "You tricked us by saying it would rain just to make us step back, right? And that crazy woman on the roof, you called her just to act along with you, right?" As the fire rises even more, everyone begins shouting. Then Xia says, "If you hesitate any longer, then we will add them too. Come on, choose. Will you abandon these refugees who hate you? Will you give them the suffering they supposedly deserve?" She stretches out her hand and says, "Or you will come with me." On the other side, darkness spreads before Reina's eyes. They are just scared, because they are hurt. She remembers her mother's words. "You are my daughter. Caroline's future lord. Not a Calamity Witch. Caroline's people, I entrust them to you." And at that moment, Reina decides and says, "I will go with you." She also remembers Ruby's words. Common people have their own fate. Then Reina extends her hand towards Xia and says, "Their fate. I will rewrite it." And she joins hands with Xia. Seeing this from below, Siapu yells, "If you leave now, their fate won't change at all." They don't know the truth. They will remain trapped in a fate of ignorance. This is just an ordinary little flame. Watch how I extinguish it. Xia sees him doing this and says, "Alright then, try it." Inside, she thinks, "Let's see whether you can change her fate, or not." Reina silently watches. Xiapu tells Jinlis, "Jinlis, do you remember the true strength of ice magic? It is to absorb and release heat. Forget the tank. Put all your strength into pulling heat out of the burning area." Jinlis asks, "Will this extinguish the fire?" Xiapu also instructs Floro. "Floro, air doesn't only blow, it can also pull. I need your wind magic to suck out all the air from there. To extinguish fire, you must remove the air," he shouts. "Quick!" Jinlis and Floro activate their magic. Jinlis screams, "I don't care! I'll do exactly as you say!" Floro also yells, "Even if I die, I'll haunt you as a ghost!" Xiapu shouts, "Hurry! They're about to teleport!" As soon as both magics activate, the fire gets pulled in all at once, and at that moment a huge blast erupts behind Xia and Reina. Xia turns back in shock and says, "Wow, how is that possible?" We see Jinli staring, shocked. We actually extinguished the fire of an 8th tier witch. Floro is crying. At that moment, Reina teleports directly from beside Xia to in front of Xiapu. In her hand are the same bottles. She smiles and says, "Knew it. You could do it." Xiapu says straight, "Now prove it. Prove that you are not a calamity witch." Reina throws all 4 bottles upward and says, "Mother, I can finally." She uses her magic and sends them into the sky. All the bottles explode, and thick clouds spread everywhere. Rain begins to fall. Xia is surprised, holding the water in her hands, saying, "Really, you did it." Reina hugs Xiapu tightly and says, "Thank you, my summoned beast." Xiapu looks up and says, "By the way, can we change that name?" Reina blushes in his arms. People see the rain and shout, "Rain! She really brought rain!" A child says, "She's not a calamity witch, she's a witch of hope." Next scene, next day, they learn that many people have gathered together. Hearing this, Xiapu yells, "What? Those refugees are gathering at the castle gate again?" He and Reina go outside. "Rain already happened, right? Why are they still coming?" When they step outside, the people approach them. Some children step forward saying, Lady Reina, thank you for the rain." Reina looks at them. A child hands her a bouquet and says, Earlier we threw stones at you. We're sorry, Lady Reina." Reina accepts it, pats his head, and says, "It's okay. I didn't get hurt." Then she grows many flowers on the ground and says, "These flowers are beautiful. I really like them." The child watches and says joyfully, "Wow! This is Lady Reina's magic." Through the crowd, Floro and Jinlis appear. Floro says, "Please give us space, Lady Reina, Lord Xiapu, this is President Murda's invitation. She said she wants to discuss some important matters." Ruby steps forward and says, "Lady Reina is the lord here. If there is work, she should come here herself. Doesn't the Fano Guild know even basic etiquette?" Xiapu opens the envelope and says, "When Miss Murda borrowed the witches, she said she needed autonomous pricing rights for all guild transactions in Caroline during the drought." Reina says, "But the drought problem has already been solved." Xiapu says, "Since she invited us so warmly, let's go take a look." Scene shifts to the Fano Guild. Xia is also there, watching them from above. Murda says, "Your presence truly illuminates this humble place." Xiapu says, "Miss Murda wants to promote rainfall technology, and we will of course be happy to help. Since she invited us specially, I presume she has prepared a price to pay." Murda says, "As expected of the inventor of rainfall technology, Mr. Xiapu is indeed clever." She shows them a box. If such a great invention were measured by money alone, surely it would feel devalued. They sit down. Murda continues, "Lady Reina is crushed under the weight of her past sins. As far as I know, The people dispatched by the Witch Management Association are on their way to Caroline and will arrive soon. It may be disrespectful, but I dare remind you, if something unfortunate happens to Lady Reina, then Mr. Siapu's death is also certain. She opens the box and says, "And I have a way to break your contract." Hearing this, a new hope flashes in Siapu's eyes. Meaning, I can take my life back into my own hands. Seeing his excitement, Murda smiles and says, "Exactly. It's just that this item is not currently in Caroline, so I can only show you its photo." Reina asks seriously, "After the contract dissolves, Summon Beast, will you return to your pre-summoning state?" Then she realizes it herself and thinks in fear. Yes, if he returns to pre-summoning form, he'll become nothing but a pile of meat chunks. What about his life then? Murda calmly explains, "This only breaks the bond created through the contract. I also don't want a talented person like Mr. Siapu to return to his old world." Siapu is stunned. Reina's heart is filled with confusion. Breaking the contract, that means he won't be mine anymore. But then a little relief appears on her face. But at least, he won't have to die because of me. Siapu steps forward, holds Reina's hand and says, "I want to discuss this deal with Miss Murda alone." The scene shifts. Now Reina and Xia are standing face to face. Xia, with a slight smile, says, "So it really rained." Then she looks at Reina and, in a slightly sarcastic tone, says, "Your summoned beast is really special. So special that he's starting to irritate me. Just like you." Xia steps a little closer and threatens, "If you had quietly come with me from the beginning, you would have suffered less. But now the Witch of Judgment, Ellen, is coming." The moment Reina hears Ellen's name, she becomes completely shocked. "Teacher Evelyn," Xia says with a cold smile, "you know she never shows mercy to heretics. And especially not to calamity witches." Reina panics and says, "No, I'm not. I'm not one." Then mustering a little courage, she says, Papa said I'm not a calamity witch." Just then, Siapu arrives, and Reina slowly begins walking toward him. From behind, Xia says in a cold voice, "If your summoned beast knew what you've done, would you still stand here so bravely and say you're not a calamity witch?" Fear becomes clearly visible in Reina's eyes. Scene shifts. Reina and Siapu walk out of the Fano Chamber of Commerce. Reina's mind is still echoing Xia's words. Seeing Reina upset, Siapu thinks, maybe she's worried about that Witch Management Council Murda mentioned. Siapu reaches out his hand toward Reina and calls her name. Suddenly, Reina grabs his hand and says, "I want to go somewhere with you." Next scene, a graveyard. This is the place," Reina says. This is why she wanted to return here. She places flowers on a grave and says, "Mother spent her whole life protecting Caroline. She even risked her life. But now that I've returned, the people of Caroline are suffering terribly." Then Reina turns around and, with a gentle smile, says to Siapu, "Thank you, for saving Caroline. And for saving me. For letting me meet Mother again. As long as you're here, Caroline will remain safe." Siapu teases a little. "If you hadn't summoned me, I'd have been dead already." He also tells her that his deal with Murda depends on Reina's life. Then he says in a firm tone, "I will break the contract myself. I will protect you. I will not let you die." Hearing this, Reina hugs him and whispers, "Then, I trust you." In Siapu's mind a thought appears. This is my future millionaire supporter. Reina falls asleep right on top of Siapu. Some time later, Siapu is carrying her on his back while walking back. A child sees them and says to his mother, "Look, Mom! The Lord is riding on her summoned beast." Meanwhile, Siapu thinks, "Am I some kind of human body pillow? She just fell asleep holding on to me." At that moment, Siapu spots Jinlis and Floro ahead. He asks in surprise, "You two, what are you doing here at this hour?" Floro says nothing, only stays silent, but Jinlis directly says, "We have terminated our cooperation with the Fano Guild. We will no longer follow their orders." Floro nods her head in agreement. Hearing this, Siapu is shocked. What? Why? Salary too low? Work too much? House too far? All this can be discussed. Please don't quit. We've only had one rainfall. There's still so much liquid nitrogen left to make. Then Jinli says, Actually, Floro and I are not poor at all. To be honest, we're pretty rich. Floro laughs and says, That's why we can slack whenever we want. No need to get trapped in a rat race. Hearing this, Siapu thinks, So now I'll have to find new capable witches? But then Jinli says, We only broke our contract with the guild because we want to stay with you, Siapu. Siapu is completely surprised. Jinli adds in a teasing tone, But Lord Summon Beast, we won't work for free. They hand money to him and say, We'll give you monthly payment. And every 6 months, we can even increase the price. Floro smiles and says, We only have one request. Let us work for you, and help us improve our magical skills. Seeing them offer money, Siapu thinks, What is happening? Is this paid employment? I've seen everything now. But Siapu refuses to take the money and says directly, One rainfall isn't enough to solve a drought. There's still a lot of work left. Inside, he rejoices. Free labor, get! Both witches become happy. Floro excitedly says, We will definitely do our best. Then Siapu says, Actually, I have a plan that won't require Reina's teleportation magic. Do you want to hear about it? Jinli and Floro shout together. We want overtime. We need work. Work. Next day. Scene shifts. We see Xia waiting for the 2 witches who were supposed to arrive. She says, Not only the Witch of Judgment, the Battle Witch Thuramo has also arrived. And she has come with her strongest magical guard legion. Then 2 powerful witches make a grand entrance. Battle Witch Thuramo and Witch of Judgment Evelyn. People cheer excitedly. Is she the goddess of war? She looks so cool. Shh! Be quiet! Xia steps forward and greets respectfully. Xia is here to welcome Master Evelyn. Master Evelyn, in a cold but intense tone, says, You couldn't even arrest the Gyra Kingdom's most intelligent and capable 3rd princess, Reina? Xia calmly answers. Reina brought rain. She ended the drought. That's why the public no longer considers her a calamity witch. If I take her away forcefully, the royal family's reputation will be at risk. She reminds them. The Bureau clearly said 8 years ago, until Reina willingly surrenders, no one can truly control her. Master Ellen asks sarcastically. So, just one rainfall, and she's no longer a calamity witch? Xia replies quickly. At least it's clear she can no longer be taken away under the name of calamity. Then Master Ellen delivers judgment. Heretics must be punished so that the people's trust remains intact. That is why I brought Thuramo with me. Xia respectfully steps back and says, From here on, everything is in your hands, Master. Meanwhile, somewhere else, people are celebrating the rain. They praise the great witches who brought rain for them. Among them Floro and Jinli. In the middle of the celebration, a messenger arrives before Reina and Siapu. He says, Lady Reina, Lady Ruby has something important to tell you. Please come to the audience hall. Reina asks in confusion. Audience hall? Siapu says. All right, let's go. As they head there, Siapu thinks. Please, from now on, let everything go well. For her, and for me. They enter. Ruby calls Reina forward. Come to the Lord's seat. Reina looks towards Siapu, and he gives her a thumbs up. You can do it. Reina slowly walks forward and sits on the Lord's chair. Ruby bows her head deeply and announces loudly. I, Ruby, greet my lord. At that moment, everyone falls to their knees together and shouts. Greetings, Lord. Ruby presents a seal and says, This is the Lord's seal, entrusted to me by Lady Sheena. Now the time has come to return it to its true owner. When Ruby gives the seal to Reina, Reina hesitates. Seeing her hesitation, Ruby explains. Once Lady Reina becomes the Lord of Caroline, you will come under the protection of the 8th royal family. Then the Witch Management Council won't be able to accuse you falsely, or treat you unfairly without evidence. Remembering Siapu's promise that he would end the contract and not let her die, and believing in the rainfall method he taught her, Reina finally accepts her role. Holding the seal, Reina declares loudly, "I, Reina Caroline, 13th Lord of Caroline Territory, swear to protect my land and my people." Hearing her vow, everyone in the hall proclaims their loyalty. "We swear on our lives to remain loyal to our Lord." At that exact moment, thunder strikes outside, and heavy rain begins pouring down. The city people shout with joy, "Lady Reina and her summoned beast have brought rain for us again." But amid this happiness, one question arises: what is happening? Murda and the fat man look outside and are literally shocked. The rain is so heavy nothing can be seen. Siapu shouts, "This is not like how rainfall happened before." There is chaos everywhere. People are running. Ruby screams in panic. "What is happening?" Siapu says seriously, "The liquid nitrogen has created a mushroom cloud effect." Behind Reina, two girls say, "It's happening because of this." Then Floro and Jinlis run up to Siapu. Floro, panting, says, "I just did what you told us. Made it rain, and even called the low-rank witches to show off a little. But it seems either our magic power grew too fast, or we misunderstood the method. The moment the container launched, a violent storm started." Just then, Xia arrives with the two witches. Evelyn, eyes full of anger, says, "It's all because of her. The calamity which has brought a new disaster. Just like before. Reina, you broke the law and escaped from prison. To avoid your fire execution, you violated the agreement and returned to Caroline without permission. Do you even know what crimes you've committed?" Reina, shocked, says softly, "Teacher Ellen." But Jinlis gathers courage, steps forward, and stands in front of Evelyn. "This is not Lady Reina's fault. It's all our fault." Floro immediately says, "Exactly right." Then a guard runs in shouting. The castle gates blew open from the wind. A huge crowd has entered. Evelyn says angrily, "Clearly, the people of Caroline don't consider this wrong." And from within the crowd, the fat man and others shout, "Lady Reina brought rain. She is not a calamity witch. Lady Reina is our lord. Witch Council management. Don't even think of taking our lord. No one can harm our lord." Seeing all this, Reina becomes emotional. Then she says to Evelyn, "Teacher, I am not a calamity witch." Evelyn says sarcastically, "Really? Your magic awakened at age 9 and attracted magical beasts. Your mother's sacrifice saved Caroline. You were supposed to live under the Witch Council in the capital, but you left without permission. Your out-of-control magic destroyed an entire village. And now again you broke the law, escaped prison, avoided punishment, and caused a storm. Reina, what do you have left to say? Reina, do you want to say anything else in your defense?" Evelyn calls two guards. "You know your crime has already been proven. Now admit you're guilty and accept your punishment." Just then, Siapu steps forward and says loudly, "What crime? What punishment? Reina is not the cause of any disaster. What you're calling crimes are all nonsense." He looks at Reina and winks. "Don't worry, I'm here." Evelyn continues, "Reina's crime was decided by the tribunal after a proper investigation. Denial alone doesn't change the truth." Reina's summoned beast Siapu suddenly opens his shirt buttons. Under it the words, "Science Truth," are written. He takes off the shirt, throws it away, and says, "I believe in scientific truth, not in authority. Now I will show all of you how ignorant your tribunal really is." He asks, "All of you were alive 9 years ago during the magical beast invasion, right?" He turns to two refugees. "Tell me, did anyone see with their own eyes that Reina summoned the magical beasts?" They fall silent and then say, "No, no one saw that. We only remember that Lady Reina's awakening ceremony was happening, and at that exact moment the beasts invaded," Siapu says. That only means Reina's magic awakened at the same time the beast came. But that doesn't mean Reina caused the beasts to come, right? The refugees agree. Yes, you're right, Ellen says. So you also admit the two events could be connected, right? Siapu replies. A natural connection can exist between a victim and a harmful act. But let me give an example. A chef cooks tasty food. Bandits smell it, come eat the food, and then kill the other customers. So is it the chef's fault? He directly asks the refugees. Tell me, is it the chef's fault? Then he looks at Master Ellen and says, No. The victim had no fault. The fault was of the attackers. Ellen says, Just like you said, maybe Reina attracted the magical beasts, but that wasn't her fault. The royal family, after consulting Lady Caroline, decided to send Reina to the capital under the Witch Council for the safety of the people. But even while living in the capital, Reina left without permission, her magic went out of control, and an entire village was destroyed. Princess Xia saw it with her own eyes. Then Siapu points at Reina. Reina, you were directly involved. Tell everyone what happened. And Princess, if there is any memory error, this is the time to clarify it. Reina says, Back then, I didn't remember anything. I only came to my senses afterward and realized what had happened. Xia says, I already said everything in the tribunal. But since my teacher asked, I'll say it again publicly. She raises her hand. I, Xia, third princess, swear that my testimony is completely true. When I arrived, Reina was floating in the air, and everything behind her was destroyed. That is all I saw with my own eyes. Siapu asks. So you're saying you only saw Reina at the scene? But what happened before that, you did not see, right? Xia nods. Yes, you can say that. Ellen steps forward and says, Only Reina was at the scene and only she had the power to cause such destruction. So she must have destroyed the village. But Siapu immediately responds. Only Reina being at the scene could also mean the real criminal had already escaped. Until details are clear and valid proof is found, we cannot say Reina caused the disaster. He points at Evelyn. When there is no clear proof, anyone can be blamed. What right do you have to so confidently declare Reina guilty? The refugees whisper among themselves. Exactly. What right does she have? Is she afraid that if Lady Reina lives, Caroline will become stronger? Suddenly Ellen's eyes glow. She forms a huge fireball using fire magic and shouts. Silence. She disperses the fireball and says seriously. Reina's crime was decided by the tribunal. I'm here to arrest this escaped prisoner. More guards arrive. Ellen announces. Anyone who obstructs this official duty will be considered equally guilty. Siapu pulls out a legal book. By the way, I've been reading your legal documents. Imperial Law Article 66 states, if a prisoner resists because of false accusations and is later proven innocent, their resistance is not considered a crime. He closes the book and adds, and because Reina is innocent, she cannot be charged with prison escape either. Reina stares at Siapu in shock, and even Xia thinks. 5 volumes, over 5,000 articles, and he found a clause that even Ellen missed. Evelyn can't say anything and only asks Reina. So, Reina, you also think you're innocent? Reina hesitates. Xia steps forward, apologizes to Ellen and says, As the third princess, my duty is to uphold the law. Until we prove Reina caused the disaster, we cannot punish her. But Ellen replies, If we cannot prove it, then the goddess will prove it. A massive statue of the goddess appears. Everyone is shocked. Evelyn announces, In the name of the goddess of magic, the judgment will begin. This is the final method given by the goddess. If Reina passes this divine trial, we will declare her innocent. The refugees cheer. This is the best chance for Lady Reina to clear the false accusations. Ellen and Xia seem pleased, but Reina is sad. She doesn't know what will happen. Ruby places a hand on her shoulder. Ever since the Witch Council took charge, every witch who faced the goddess's divine trial met a tragic end. Floro shouts. Exactly. Jinli adds. Even the strongest 9th-rank dark witch in history could not survive the trial. Ellen says coldly. And their deaths proved they were heretics who deserved it. Or do you also think Reina is a heretic who will fail? The refugees shout. Lady Reina is not the Witch of Calamity. She will definitely pass the trial. Siapu thinks as expected. This so-called divine trial is just the modern version of a medieval witch hunt, just another way for the witch council to eliminate people they dislike. Suddenly Reina speaks. I will face the goddess's divine trial. Siapu steps beside her. I am her summoned beast. I will face it with her. Reina says his name softly. Siapu smiles a little. Ellen feels secretly delighted. Evelyn says, the trial will begin at dusk outside the city square. Scene shifts. Reina and Siapu are in a room. Siapu packs items and says, you don't know the details of the trial, so I brought everything that might be needed. Reina asks, do you have any wish? I want to fulfill it. Siapu is shocked. I want 10 million fans, to become a top 100 creator, to have so many ad deals my hands can't hold them, a huge mansion, and sweet little romance. You can't do any of that. Stop this nonsense and prepare. But Reina blushes lightly. And all of us have the same thought. Wait, is she actually thinking of fulfilling Siapu's wish? Reina walks straight to Siapu, grabs his hand, and sits on top of him. His mind screams, what is happening? God, no way. Is this that have a baby before battle type of thing? Reina shyly whispers. Romance. I can help you get that. Siapu instantly says. This is not how relationships start. Reina pauses. Then how do they start? Siapu replies. First of all, let go of my hand. Reina simply says. Okay, let's do it. And leans close to kiss him. However you like. In Siapu's head, this crazy girl, who does things like this out of nowhere. And just when romance was about to happen, Shia barges in like a skeleton. She sees them and says, I came to tell you important details about the divine trial, but I guess you two have time for nonsense like this. So maybe my information isn't needed. Romance cut. All of US, did she seriously have to enter right now? Reina turns around. A loud voice snaps. Didn't your mother teach you not to enter without knocking? Siapu adds. First you pretended to help Reina, then again I thought you really wanted her to vanish. Shia mutters. Unease, fear, despair, seeing those ugly, twisted expressions on their faces. Isn't that more fun than making them vanish? And Siapu thinks, isn't that more fun? Then he tells Shia. You're right. But with me here, you might be disappointed. Shia steps forward and says, the divine trial has 3 parts. The trial of flames, the trial of the abyss, and the trial of the storm. During the trial, the witch's magic power will also become very weak. She reaches towards Siapu's supplies. Let's see if your little tricks still work when the time comes. He stops her hand. Thank you for telling us. Shia finally says. I will be watching closely. Scene shifts. Reina and Siapu stand before the goddess's trial. Ellen floats in the air and declares, Witch of Calamity, the goddess will judge you. If you survive this trial. Evelyn raises a glowing crystal. Siapu extends his hand to Reina. Let's face this fake goddess's trial together. They hold hands. Both begin to teleport. And suddenly they arrive inside the trial, surrounded by endless flames. Siapu exclaims in shock. So this is the trial of flames? This place is completely surrounded by fire. And seeing all this, Reina says, the magical elements here feel a little strange. Except for the fire element, the other elements like water, wind, and earth can only be used up to at most 4th rank. Right then, Siapu notices a portal there and he says, this portal looks just like Doctor Strange. Looks like this is the only way out from here. That means. And then his eyes fall on that path in the middle of the flames and he says, we have to think of some way to cross this path. The moment someone steps on it, it will burn them, and we have to reach that altar. Especially if we fall off either side of the path, maybe not even our corpses will remain. Right then Reina grabs his hand and says, we don't need to walk through it. I will use wind magic. I will fly you across. And here the scene shifts to outside where everyone is watching this trial live. They're talking among themselves. Lady Reina will do it easily. After all, she is Lady Reina, who can use all 5 basic magics. Then Shia is shown. She says, if the environment was normal, then flying with wind magic would work easily. Then she activates fire magic in one hand and water magic in the other and says, but just look how she used fire and water magic right now. And also think that she has to carry her summoned beast along with her. I'm afraid she might not even make it to the other side. Then she looks at Ellen and asks, I'm right, isn't it, teacher? Ellen replies, the goddess will bless and protect them, as long as she isn't a heretic. After this the scene cuts to Ruby. Watching all this, she thinks to herself, the trials were never shown to the public before. But this time Ellen deliberately prepared radiant projection magic, so everyone can watch the entire trial. She will not stop until Lady Reina is completely ruined. Lord Siapu, please somehow detect all the traps and protect Lady Reina. Then Floro is shown. She speaks anxiously. Lady Reina, no matter what happens, do not use wind magic. And then the scene returns to the trial. Siapu suddenly stops Reina from using magic and says, the last time we flew, you dropped me halfway. I barely survived. Isn't magic power limited here? Let's test it on these stones first. Show me your first, second, third, and fourth rank magic power output. Reina agrees and says, okay. And she uses her wind magic. Seeing this test, Siapu starts calculating in his mind. With 1/10 magic power, moving a 5 kilograms object, first rank magic throws at 1 meter, second rank 2 meters, third rank 4 meters, and fourth rank 8 meters. As the weight increases, the distance will decrease even more. This path is about 50 meters long. And even if I estimate generously, Reina and my combined weight won't be more than 125 kilograms. Thinking this, tears fill his eyes and he screams in his mind, we will fall halfway and die. Good thing I stopped her in time. After that, Reina tries water magic and says, but the water magic here has almost no water, so extinguishing the fire is impossible. And walking through this fire is absolutely impossible. Siapu says, but we can use water magic to walk on it. Hearing this from outside, Avon mocks, ridiculous! Daydreaming nonsense! Inside the trial, Siapu starts writing calculations on the ground. Seeing this, the villagers outside become confused. What is this kid writing? Is he writing his will? But didn't he just say he has a way to cross? Then Merida is shown, and she says, interesting. Seeing Siapu writing like this, Floro says, I've seen him writing things like this before when I worked for him. Hearing her, Jinlish also says, this must be that science he always talks about. Then Siapu finishes his calculations and stands up saying, to cross, we will need less than half a liter of water. Reina, use your water magic and wrap us inside it. This way we will cross safely. Reina asks in shock, won't it evaporate? Won't it turn into steam and boil us alive? Siapu says, to explain that we need to start with the Leidenfrost effect. Reina can only stutter. Leidenfrost. Siapu continues. When the surface is extremely hot, the evaporating steam creates a vapor layer between the liquid and the hot surface. This vapor layer not only acts as insulation but also prevents the liquid from touching the hot surface directly. That's why the liquid floats on top of this vapor layer, allowing us to roll across on it. The fire-walking ritual is based on the same principle. After explaining all this, he picks Reina up in his arms, making Reina blush. Siapu says, to move quickly, we need to hold on to each other. Reina blushes even more and says shyly, I understand. Her entire face had turned red. Seeing this, Siapu thinks in his mind, if this wasn't an emergency, she looks so cute right now that I would pinch her cheeks. Then, still holding her, he moves forward and says, now use your water magic, my dear lord. Hearing this, she uses her water magic and covers both herself and Siapu with water. Then Siapu says, now use wind magic as the driving force, a gentle push. Reina activates her wind magic as well. Siapu says, "Just a light push." Reina does exactly that and both of them begin moving forward in that bubble of water. Siapu says, "The steam will push us forward, rolling along this path." The scene shifts outside again. Seeing this, Ellen says, "Can such a small amount of water really work? With so much white smoke, the water must have evaporated long ago. And the two of them must already have turned to ash." Meanwhile, Floro and Jinlish, filled with tension, say, "They must be okay. Nothing has happened to them." Right then the trial shows that there is smoke everywhere. But when the smoke clears, both of them are completely safe. Siapu shouts in excitement, "We cleared the stage!" Seeing this, Ellen is left speechless. Fleur and Jinlish scream happily, "That's our mighty summon beast!" Seeing this, Shia also smiles happily and says, "This is really great." Ruby too feels happy for both of them and thinks to herself, "I didn't expect this boy to actually pull it off." Then Evelyn laughs and says, "This fire trial isn't over yet." The scene goes back to the trial. The two of them had reached the altar, but the portal begins to shrink. Seeing this, Siapu shouts, "This is bad. The portal is getting smaller. If this continues, it will disappear in 5 minutes. We'll be stuck here and roasted like kebabs." Seeing this, Reina panics and starts using water magic again. "I'll use water magic again," she says. But Siapu stops her and says, "Such a little amount of water will evaporate instantly in this fire. The flames here are far too strong." Then something strikes him and he asks, "Reina, isn't there more wind element here than on that path earlier?" Reina checks and says, "The wind element and fire element are actually equal in amount." Reina uses her wind magic and starts lifting Siapu with her. "I'll fly you over from above." Hearing this, Siapu yells, No, wait! The hottest part of fire is its outer flame layer. If we fly through that, we will definitely become kebabs." They both land safely. Reina apologizes. "Sorry." Siapu explains to her, "There is a correct way to use wind magic. Tell the fire to clear a path for us." Outside, the villagers become confused again. "Clear the path with wind magic? Does he mean extinguish the fire with wind? I've always heard that wind makes fire stronger, not weaker." Shia thinks to herself, "No, this summoned beast once made 4th rank Floro extinguish my flames." Then Evelyn says again, "The altar flames are burning using top-tier fire magic crystals. Wind can't extinguish it. This will only speed up their deaths. Just watch carefully how they write their own doom." Floro gathers courage and says, "Lord Siapu will definitely extinguish the fire this time too, just like last time." Jinlish nods and agrees with her. The scene returns to the trial. Siapu says to Reina, "Reina, the next plan I want you to do. I can't guarantee success. But in this situation, this is the only solution I have. For this you must control the wind with extremely precise accuracy. If there's even a tiny mistake, we will die." Hearing this, Reina says confidently, "I don't understand science. But in magic, I am very strong." Hearing this, Siapu says, "Then create 2 tornadoes on either side of the fire that rotate in opposite directions." Reina does exactly as Siapu told her. Seeing those tornadoes, Siapu analyzes the plan in his mind. When tornadoes spin fast, they throw the air outward, creating a low-pressure area in the center. This low-pressure zone will pull away the oxygen needed for the fire to burn, and it will also remove the intense heat generated by the flames. And the 2 opposite direction tornadoes will tear the fire apart from the middle, breaking the combustion chain reaction. When they collide, the air will push downward and prevent the fire from touching oxygen. We don't know the exact source of this fire, and it should be impossible to extinguish fully. But if the fire can't get what it needs to burn, we can at least stop it for a while." The scene shifts outside again. Ruby prays silently. The goddess will surely protect them. No, Lord Siapu will definitely succeed. And then everyone sees that the fire truly has parted from the middle. A path has been created. Seeing this, Siapu says to Reina, "The fire has stopped." Reina happily says, now we just have to repeat the first move, the light and frost one, and rush across quickly, right? Your scientific insight is amazing. Just then Siapu notices the portal and thinks, the portal is shrinking. He immediately reaches out his hand toward Reina and says, come on. Reina runs toward him. Siapu picks her up in his arms once again and says, we don't have much time. I'm going to run. And then he jumps with Reina and enters the portal. Outside, the villagers jump with joy and cheer loudly. Lady Reina, you're amazing. Lord Summoned Beast, your intelligence has no equal. The scene returns inside the trial. They escape the fire. But as soon as they come out of the portal, they are in midair, and below them is a vast ocean. Seeing this, Siapu screams in shock. No! Is this portal facing the wrong direction? Why are we falling headfirst downward? It's the entire ocean below us. He thinks in his mind. Luckily Shia had already given me a hint beforehand. And anyway, I was going outdoors before coming here, so I brought this thing with me. He tells Reina. Reina, hold me tightly. And just as he had thought, he takes out an inflatable swim float. The two of them start floating on it, and Siapu says, this swim float really saved our lives. Right then Reina shows something to Siapu. Siapu, look over there. When Siapu looks in that direction, a water tornado, a whirlpool tornado, is rushing toward them. Seeing this, Siapu says in shock, what kind of strange combination is this? A water tornado in the ocean and an oceanic whirlpool. Judging from the past stage's experience, we must quickly find the next portal and pass through it to reach the final stage. But in such a massive ocean, how will we find it? Especially when we don't even know whether the portal is in the sky or under the sea. Right then Reina closes her eyes and says, the portal, it is a magic passage. She uses her magic sensing power, concentrates carefully, and says, the portal is right beneath the whirlpool. The scene shifts to the outside again, where Evelyn is watching everything and says, not only that, the portal will keep growing larger until it pulls both of them inside and tears them to pieces. Most of her magic power got exhausted in the fire trial. No witch can escape this inverted sea alive. Especially not while carrying a burden like Siapu along with her. Hearing all this, the villagers still don't lose faith. As long as Lord Summoned Beast is with Lady Reina, everything will be fine. Yes, the Summoned Beast will definitely have some way. Everyone starts watching the screen again. Meanwhile, inside the trial, Siapu is saying, if the portal is under the whirlpool, then the problem becomes unsolvable for us. Hearing this, the villagers outside become tense. Then Siapu continues explaining. The closer you go to the center of a whirlpool, the faster it spins. And the sheer force, the rubbing between water layers spinning at different speeds, can tear a human body apart. Pointing toward the water tornado, he says, unless you can control your falling direction precisely, and land directly in the low-pressure cavity formed at the center of the high-speed rotation, it's impossible. Reina shows courage and says, I can do it. But Siapu stops her. You cannot. You're in the same condition as that day when you collapsed using water magic in the village. Then he takes a cloth from his bag and throws it forward. The cloth begins drifting toward the whirlpool. Siapu thinks in his mind. Trying to solve this problem right now is completely useless. It's impossible. Within moments, the cloth reaches near the whirlpool. The scene shifts outside again. Floro, filled with tension, says, if Lord Siapu himself has said there is no way, then... She sits down sadly. Ruby and Shia too look extremely worried for both of them. But Ellen watches their reactions and says, looks like even the goddess isn't helping them this time. The scene goes back inside the trial. Reina, giving up, says, I can't protect you. Forgive me. But if I can die together with Siapu, then I will truly be very happy. Right then Siapu tells her, just because there is no solution, that doesn't mean we are going to die. Reina looks at him in surprise. The next stage is right above us. To solve this problem, we are not going to jump into the sea. We're going straight into the sky and skipping this stage entirely. Outside, Jinlish and Floro hear this and shout. They're going to skip the stage. Inside the trial, Siapu explains his plan. The whirlpool probably formed because the ocean water is continuously falling into the portal. See that survival blanket I threw? It got pulled into the whirlpool but then fell back down from the sky. That means the top and bottom water streams are connected, he continues. Reina, I want you to use your remaining magic power to create a sudden blast of water and launch us high enough to go above that water stream. He places his hand on her head to encourage her. There's no shortage of water elements here. So for the sake of our lives you can do this. Right? Reina answers. For you, I can do it. Then she does exactly that beneath them, a blast of water. Within moments, they shoot upward. But as they rise, Siapu shouts in shock. The space we were in was a hollow layer between two seas. There's another sea above our heads, and then both of them immediately start falling down fast. Siapu yells. Gravity flipped after we crossed that layer. Crap! We fell into the upper sea. And splash, both of them crash into the water. Next, Reina asks Siapu, Are you okay? And then she closes her eyes. Seeing this, Siapu calls her name loudly and quickly swims toward her, grabbing her hand. They both were completely submerged, and Reina couldn't breathe. So Siapu kisses her to give her air, giving her breath mouth to mouth. And after that, he brings Reina outside. But Reina still had not regained consciousness. So Siapu gives her air one more time. And seeing all this from outside, Shia becomes completely stunned. And the villagers also see this and say that at such a time why did Lord Summon Beast suddenly turn into a beastly brute? And here Siapu is pressing Reina's stomach to take the water out, and whatever water she had swallowed, he makes all of it come out. Then she slowly begins to regain consciousness. Seeing this, Siapu calls her name to wake her up, and then Reina also comes to her senses and sees Siapu near her. After that, Siapu shouts that he was not trying to take advantage of her. But Reina had no problem with him. She instead looks at this place, and says that this is the sea surface from where they had fallen and sunk below. Somehow they floated into this space. In other words, they have successfully skipped that stage. And then the scene shifts outside and the villagers happily say that they knew Lord Summon Beast would surely have some solution. The goddess's blessing remains on Lady Reina. And seeing this, Floro and Jinlish also become happy and say that this is the final trial. Once they pass this, Lady Reina will be able to clear her name. And at this moment, Evelyn looks at the two of them and thinks in her mind that they really managed to reach this far. And then she releases a butterfly and says, So it is like that. And seeing that butterfly, Shia says in surprise, Is that the illusory rainbow butterfly? And then that butterfly enters the trial, and at the same time a portal opens for them. Siapu shows the portal to Reina and says, There is the portal. In the middle of this storm, we have no choice but to fly. So Reina activates her wind magic, and says that her magic power will take a full day to fully recover. Then Siapu says from ahead that looking at the last two stages, this portal should disappear with time. They do not have the time to wait a full day for her recovery. And he thinks in his mind, looking at the direction of the storm, could this be a fixed air flow? And then Reina says from ahead that she wishes she could recover a bit sooner. At that moment, Siapu places his hand on her shoulder and says that in his previous world, there were tools that could fly using only air without any magic power. And hearing this, the villagers outside say in amazement, Is there really something that can fly without magic power, using only air? What exactly is it? They can't wait to see it. And at that moment, Evelyn says that as expected, even the wind trial cannot stop them. And she thinks in her mind, then let the illusory rainbow butterfly finish this trial. And here inside the trial, Siapu picks up a lot of wood. Reina says from ahead, Siapu, does she really not need to do anything? To this, Siapu says there is no need. And then he takes rope and cloth out from his bag and says that this place uses completely different technology from the outside. An island that can actually float in the sky. And then we come to Reina, and she remembers something from her past. When she was little, she used to be able to fly. And seeing this, the other children were shocked, and then she would land easily on the ground. From ahead, the children say that she must have awakened her magic power earlier than time. Reina says that awakening should happen at the age of 12, right? The children say from ahead, "That's exactly why it's called early awakening. Reina, make me float in the sky too." So she also starts making those children float in the air, and the children, while flying, say, "A bit higher, me too, I also want to fly." So she agrees and lifts them higher into the air. And then we return to the present, and remembering all this, she thinks in her mind that these memories are an illusion. These are an illusion. And then Reina also brings some wood, and there she sees a magic array. She says this island floats because of this wind magic array. She has never seen a magic array with such an elegant and intricate structure. To this, Siapu says, "Elegant and intricate?" He thought it was just some messy otherworldly magic scribbles. Could it have its own internal logic, like mathematical and scientific formulas? Although he still doesn't understand the principles behind her magic power, whoever can make an island float must definitely be an extraordinary genius. And hearing this genius part, she again slips into her past. And now everyone is saying that she is not only skilled in wind magic but also in fire, water, lightning, earth, and light magic. The other children nod in agreement. And then all the children start distancing themselves from Reina and say that ordinary people like them should maintain distance from such a genius. The teacher said her magic power is still uncontrollably increasing, and once it stabilizes, they will hold a special awakening ceremony only for her. Truly, how wonderful it is to be a genius! And Reina kept trying to stop them, but no one stayed near her. Remembering all this, she begins trembling in the present, and keeps thinking that this is an illusion. This is an illusion. And then here Siapu has already built a glider. And he says, "A glider that can fly using only air is complete." Then he calls Reina. "Come on, Reina!" And she arrives and holds the glider. Then Siapu says from ahead, "Release all your magic power and let it fly in the wind tunnel." Hearing this, her hands begin trembling. She again slips into her past. At that time too her teacher had said, "Come on, Reina, release all your magic power." And when she released her magic, a thunder struck down. And right now, the same thing happens. A thunder falls, and remembering all those things, tears fill Reina's eyes. And in the past, at the same moment, an attack had already happened, by a huge beast. Seeing this, the other children say, "Bad! The plague beast!" And the children are told to hide. "It's here! Everyone hide quickly!" And Reina is lost thinking all this, while here Siapu is shouting loudly at her. "Reina, what happened to you? Wait, stop this first!" And then in the past, she had released her full power. And in front of her was that beast which had killed many people. And it was saying, "Magic power! I need something stronger, more magic!" And then she returns to the present, where she is now sitting down on the ground, letting go of the glider, and she is saying, "Forgive me. I brought that beast. Sorry, Mom, forgive me." And here, because of her magic, strong winds start blowing, so strong that even Siapu was about to be blown away. And after that, the scene shifts outside, and now it had already become night. Seeing all this, Ruby is saying, "How is this possible?" Then Ellen shows all this to everyone and says, "As you all can see, the heretic has finally shown her true face in front of the goddess's trial." Hearing this, the villagers also begin to believe it, and they say, "Could it be that Lady Reina?" And then Floro says, "This is surely a magic power overload." From ahead, Jinalish says, "But how did Reina suddenly lose control of her magic?" Then Marita says from ahead, "This definitely happened because of that colorful butterfly that appeared suddenly. The phosphorescent powder it released is what triggered her magic overload. If they don't stop this soon, the magic will keep corroding her, and in the end she will transform into a demon whose only desire will be to cause destruction." And then the scene shifts inside the trial. Siapu in shock says, "This trial is not for Reina. This is clearly a trial for me. It feels like the final boss of the last stage is Reina herself. I don't know what exactly has happened to her. But if this continues, I won't survive. That glider I worked so hard to make. So let's retrofit and upgrade it. And he begins digging up soil. Seeing this, the villagers couldn't understand anything. After digging the soil, he pours water into it and mixes it thoroughly. Seeing this, the villagers say in shock, "He's playing with mud?" Then he applies the mud onto the glider's cloth and says, "When faced with power, answer with power. Non-Newtonian fluid shield, deploy." And to protect himself, he places the glider in front of him like a shield. Seeing this, Floro says, "Lord Shep intends to rely on a shield made of mud to withstand Lady Reina's destructive force." But the wind is extremely strong, and Reina's wind does not stop at all. She keeps blowing harder. Along with it, stones also begin flying toward them. But Siapu's glider blocks them. Then Siapu, still holding the glider like that, begins walking toward Reina. He calls out to her. Reina also sees him, and now Reina clings onto him and says, "Mom." Hearing this, Siapu holds her hand and says, "Madam, if you miss your mom so much, then unwillingly I will once again become your male mom." And then he hugs Reina and says, "Reina, I know you hid yourself because of your pain. And I also know you can definitely hear me. So listen carefully to what I'm about to say. That beast hurt people. It was not your fault. Your mom died protecting the people of the territory and protecting you. That was not your fault. The drought in Caroline was a natural disaster. That also is not your fault. The Reina I know has never intentionally hurt anyone. In fact, you have always helped others. You summoned me and saved me. You solved the drought problem and saved Caroline. When we leave this place, I still want to work together with you to make Caroline stronger. So strong that no one will ever dare raise their voice against us. So sleep peacefully. I will wait for you until you wake up." And here, a song begins playing. Hearing this song, Ruby says in surprise, "This song?" Then Narita laughs and says, "Ha, lullaby, ha?" And Ruby now has tears in her eyes and she says, "In the past, before Lady Reina slept, Lady Sheena always sang this song for her." And Reina's mom is saying, "The beast was attracted to your strong magic. But being powerful is not your fault. Remember, because you are strong, Caroline and I were able to be protected. Reina, my daughter, the Lord of Caroline, you should wake up now." And then Reina regains consciousness and calls out for her mom. Then she tells Siapu that she feels as if she has seen a very long dream. From ahead, Siapu asks how she is feeling now. And Reina replies that after waking from the dream, her magic power has fully restored and has now become even more abundant than before. Hearing Reina's words, Siapu says in his mind, "So I didn't play your mom's dying male mom role for nothing." And then he says aloud, "So come on, let's blast apart this crappy trial and finish it, and get ready to go home for dinner." And he holds Reina's hand. Then Reina lifts Siapu and flies with him toward the portal. After coming close, Siapu says, "We did it, let's go." Reina also says, "Yes." And then the two of them enter the portal. But they do not go home. Instead, they enter yet another trial and come standing upon a huge statue. This place looks like a battlefield. Below, bones are scattered everywhere. Seeing all this, both of them are shocked. And even Ellen did not know about this place. She says in surprise, "What is this place?" Then Ruby says from ahead, "Because until today, no one has ever come out alive from this trial. So naturally no one has ever seen this site before, nor does anyone know what this place is. It actually looks like a battlefield." And then Shia says to Yuan, "Teacher, the trial has ended. Now it is time for you to announce your verdict." Ellen also says, "I declare that they have passed the goddess's divine trial. And it is proven that she is not a heretic." And then inside the trial, Siapu sees a glowing thing near the statue's forehead and says in his mind, "That gem on the statue,